The question where to start reading Murakami is mostly answered by Norwegian Wood, which is a great answer, but I want to make a different suggestion. Why not start with Sputnik Sweetheart? Today we go for a walk with this book. I'm a huge fan of Murakami. I love the way he portrays ordinary people and makes them incredibly complex and have this incredible interior lives that you have no idea how are even possible. He's mostly described as magic realism, but I guess it's just great fiction what he does. Sputnik Sweetheart, a love story between two women, and it's typical Murakami. It's all about how to find love, what happens if you don't manage to find it, what happens if you're unable to love, how do you make it, is this universe the only one, is something like a soulmate a thing or not really, and all these kind of things. And it's really, really, really nice, and it's also quite short, so I think it's a good point to start. Another book by Murakami I have to recommend is actually his own story, which is what I talk about when I talk about running. It's a book he writes about himself and the way he lives and writes, and I think it's incredible, and definitely if you're into it, you will definitely enjoy it. There's actually another one that he released later on, and it's Novelist as a Vacation. I also read it and I can recommend it. I find it super interesting. How is it that those people are able to, invent those incredible stories? He actually tells that he usually just sits at his desks and then he runs. So it's not very glamorous, but I mean, the results are quite incredible. One thing I'm quite obsessed is the first line. I quite often buy a book based on the first line. So I want to share the first line of Sputnik Sweetheart, which is, in the spring of her 22nd year, Sumir fell in love for the first time in her life. That's how it begins. And my favorite quote from Sputnik Sweetheart. And it came to me then that we were wonderful traveling companions, but in the end no more than lonely lumps of metal in their own separate orbits. From far off they look like beautiful shooting stars, but in reality they are nothing more than prisons, where each of us is locked up alone, going nowhere. When the orbits of these two satellites of ours happened to cross paths, we could be together, but that was only for the briefest moment. In the next instant, we'd be in the absolute solitude, until we burned up and became nothing. It's not typical love story quote, but that's what Murakami is, a little bit different, a little bit unsettling, and you also get a feeling that you're kind of drifting in space, not really sure where you are, what is happening, but it's a beautiful journey. And by the way, it's called Sputnik Sweetheart because Sputnik was the first man-made satellite that was released into space in Russia, and then the Sputnik 2 was released later on with the dog on it. And none of those satellites ever came back. So maybe they're still drifting somewhere in space. Who knows? And before we go, a few more recommendations by Haruki Murakami. Make sure you read The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. It's so strange and really incredible. I deeply recommend it, and it was also loved by Patti Smith, so she knows what she's talking about. Another book that you should definitely check out is The One Q74. It's big, it's long, but it's so much worth it. When I finished the first two parts, I really literally ran to the library to get the third one, and I don't know, somehow he manages us to have us longing for the answers. And by the way, when I saw Murakami live, there was a Q&A session that I wasn't able to participate in, and people were asking him strange questions like, does Japanese war influences you, and stuff like that, and he would sometimes just answer no, and that would be it. And I was sitting there in the audience thinking, why nobody asks Murakami, what does he really think about love? Does he believe in this concept of one love for the whole lifetime, of the soulmate thing, and if you cannot find it, or you find it and you lose it, you're going to be doomed forever? Does he really believe it, or is it just for purpose of literature? How to navigate life on those terms, So, well, I guess we all have a lot of questions to Murakami that we probably won't be able to ask. But remember, what I talk about when I talk about running and Novelist as a Vacation are two non-fiction works that he has written about himself and the way he lives and writes, which I deeply recommend. Well, that's all in Walk and Read today. Let me know if you've read Sputnik Sweetheart. What is your favorite Murakami book in general? What question would you ask him if you could? And of course, share your favorite quote. And enjoy the view!